I do see we have a quorum. I guess I would ask if you're not a committee member, if you could just turn off your video and mute for now until we get to a public participation part of the meeting. Thank you for all that. So it is 3:05. I will now call this meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee to order. And I will note that we are meeting remotely and this meeting is being recorded. And so I will, when Alan gets in here, I will call the roll. Let's go in order on my screen. Marsha Rasmussen.
Here.
Wally Johnston.
Present.
Meryl Schwartz. Meryl, do you want to unmute for a second and just announce yourself?
Here, sorry.
Kevin Monahan.
Here.
Steve Dukran.
Present.
Kate Hodges.
Here.
Aaron McCloskey.
Here.
John Arena.
Here.
And Phil Posner. Phil?
Muted.
Here. Here.
Good. Okay. So see, I think everybody's here. So why don't we get to the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Aaron distributed the minutes with the agenda a few days ago. So are there any comments or questions or additions, edits to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
So moved by Johnson, seconded by Schwartz to approve the minutes. Any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, I will call for a roll call vote once again. In order of the screen, Marcia.
Aye.
Wally.
Aye.
Meryl.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Steve Dukran.
Aye.
Kate Hodges.
Aye.
Aaron McCloskey.
Aye.
John Arena.
Aye.
And Phil Posner.
Aye.
So next we just want to do a quick update of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. You know, Marsha, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the bridge project that is underway, and there's been some work being planned or done in other communities. So I didn't know if you could provide us with an update of where things stand with that.
I'd be happy to.
And actually, but Ellen, could you just turn off your video, because it messes me up when I go to look at committee members' vote. When we get to when we get to public comment, you can turn it back on.
Okay. Several things are going on, and the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is being completed in Concord in a series of phases. Phase 2C was completed in 2018. We celebrated that in 2019. There are some small details that still remain to be done. We're hoping to remove some fencing that is near the Sanborn School, and Aaron McCloskey is going to have his crew do that, take care of that sometime this spring when they have some time. There's a small planting area that we hope to get completed this spring as well. And the town received a grant as of January 1st of this year for some additional bike racks and bike shelters in West Concord in the commuter lot. So we'll be using the existing, the right-of-way that was part of the former railroad where new parking was provided, since that is not associated with the commuter parking lot, but is available for anybody visiting or working in West Concord. But we'll be using about 6 of those spaces for these bike racks and bike shelters that need to be installed before the end of September of this year. Phase 2B is that section of the trail that extends from the Commonwealth Ave parking lot to the bridge that's going to be constructed over Route 2 and tie into the Acton portion. And that is still on schedule to be completed in November of 2021. You may have noticed that some of the beams have been installed where it is crossing over the Neshoba Brook. And they are anticipating that the beams over Route 2 will be installed during the summer. So it's very exciting. Things are on track, as they will say. And then the final phase of the rail trail in Concord is the last half mile from Powder Mill Road south to the town line. And that is going to be constructed as part of the Sudbury portion of the trail. This last half mile is primarily going to be the paving and the fencing where there are along that whole stretch. So we are in conversation with the abutters about the fencing. I also have a meeting that's being scheduled with Mass DOT Section 3 or Section 2. I'm don't keep all the sections straight, but I know that it isn't Section 4 that is handling this portion of the trail for next week to discuss some of the issues that they have with the fencing. And then we are working on signage, some of the interpretive panels. Delia Kay will be developing some of the concepts around the various panels based on the information provided by the White Pond Advisory Committee. And then we hope to engage with an artist who will help design those panels. So we're going to try to reduce the number from 6 down to 2 or 3, and is to reduce the places where people may want to stop and read more information. But one of our goals will be to provide information about how to get off the trail, take Powder Mill Road, and access White Pond Beach from the public portion of White Pond Beach. So that's one of the hopes with our interpretive panels. So, and that project right now is in design. The 100% design is being developed by Greenman Peterson Incorporated for the Concord portion. The Sudbury portion is being designed by Fuss and O'Neill, and our 2 consultants are working together to make sure that the project will meet appropriately, and each engineering firm is responsible for their portion of the design. And that's my update on the Bruce Freeman, unless there are any questions.
So before we go to questions, I'm gonna put Lieutenant Monahan on the spot. I was going to share my screen and just Kevin, have you walk us through the brochure that we're going to be distributing. So I'll do that.
So this is the brochure that I believe the planning department actually created for us when the Bruce Freeman Trail actually opened up. And it just kind of breaks down rules for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists and what their responsibilities are. And just to have people advise them they're supposed to walk their bicycles through the Junction Park area of the trail.
So this is the back side of it, or it's a trifold. So this
It's a trifold, correct?
Yeah, this is front and back. So I'm just going to go to the second page. Can everybody see this second page? Did it switch over? Sometimes on share screen, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I did switch out. So essentially, it's bicycle laws, and it explains what they are, the pedestrian laws as well as the motorist laws, and what your responsibilities are, as I said previously. So that's essentially what it is, and it would be good, one way to educate cyclists and people in the area of what the laws are, and especially in the area of Junction Park, which I know is a topic as well.
If I may, this brochure is going to need to be further revised because I don't believe we have the Minuteman Zagster this year. And maybe Kate Hodges could confirm or deny that.
Yeah, I don't think Zagster exists anywhere now.
Well, yeah, Zagster, as they are, went out of business, but actually sold the rights to their company to another entity. And the town of Lexington and our town are working together to try to see if we can reuse the racks that we already got on a grant from that. So we will have some type of bike share, but it will not be called Zagster. And it can probably be taken out of the brochure for this year because just not knowing what's going to happen with some of the COVID regulations, et cetera, we're probably not going to roll that out this year just for health and safety reasons. But we will eventually be back where we were a couple of years ago.
Okay. So we'll make sure that we make that change and get that back to you, Kevin.
Excellent, thank you.
Any questions about the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail generally, or the brochure, or from the, I will take public comment or questions about Bruce Freeman as well at this point. So just turn your video on, and I can almost, let me see if I can get everybody on the screen. I can't necessarily do that. Okay, I see. All right. Who I saw
Hello?
first. I think I saw Mark first, but Richard, I'll go to you next.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, quick. Just saying, so what's the timeline for printing the brochure? Because if there's a little time, and even in draft form, it can be put out, people could submit suggestions, small or large. Thank you.
Okay. I like I said, I think it's, are we printing them kind of on an on-demand basis? We're not doing like a printing order, are we? Kevin, do you know?
No, we'll just print them as we need them.
Okay, sure. So I mean, it could be, if there's improvements that can be made, we can certainly take a look at that. Richard Follander. Oh, Mark Galis.
Yeah, no, that's great. So
No,
I mean,
I forgot name and address.
Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road. Yeah.
I
So,
know you don't often comment in meetings, so I'm not surprised that you forgot to mention your name. And
yeah,
address.
no, but yeah. So you know, the sooner we see it, sooner people can make improve suggestions for improvements of any kind. Thanks.
Sure. Richard.
Hi, Richard Follander, 399 Old Bedford Road, co-chair of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee. Just one quick little addition to Marcia's report, that we have been approached by neighbors along 2A Elm Street about gaining access to the trail basically through Acton. And the advisory committee has sent a letter to our state representatives as well as the select board asking that they look at sidewalks, crosswalks, et cetera, for that area. Just a heads up, because I think this might end up on your agenda at some point. Thank you.
And I should have started this at the, I don't know if there's anybody else, but I should have announced this at the beginning. Several members have a hard stop at just before 4 o'clock. And so we're going to try and finish this up by then. Is it Steve Urza? You have a comment?
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve Urza. I've lived in West Concord since 1999 and served on the West Concord Advisory Committee for 6 years, 2 as its chair. Junction Park has always been a vibrant meeting place for the West Concord Village. It's the center of the village. It's a park first and rail trail pass through second. With the expected increase in traffic on the trail when the Route 2 overpass and Phase 2B are complete, it is important that the park remains a place where people can safely gather and enjoy without concerns for safety. So I just want to emphasize that we really need the park to be safe.
Steve, your address?
39 Cottage Street.
So Stephen, I can't get my video to work. So if you can call me somewhere.
Hang on, Ellen, hang on 1 second.
Sure, no problem.
Because that's an excellent segue into our next agenda item, which is the Junction Park discussion. And so I guess I will, I think I will somewhat depart from the norm and just invite those from the community who are here and want to participate in the discussion to turn on their video. And if you want to, I want to try and keep this orderly, but just remember to announce your name and address and just let us know briefly your views on Junction Park, and just bearing in mind, like I said, that we have a timetable that we're trying to stick to for the meeting. So if it's brief and new material, so to speak, that's preferable. And I guess I will certainly start with Dory.
Thank you very much. That's very thoughtful of you. I am Dory Keogh, 51 MacArthur Road. And I'm here in an informal way, though a member of the West Concord Green Thumbs. I'm sure that you all know, of course, where Junction Park is. it was developed in the sort of around 2007. Concord Public Works had a grant and also decided that whole area, which was really kind of a no man's land, would be an attractive center for West Concord. They approached the new West Concord Green Thumbs to help work on it. It was the best example of a public-private partnership, I think, that many of us have ever seen. So we're proud of it. And a comment from Chris Whalen when he came through after it was all done and watched who was using it, that he said he loved to drive by it on his way home, that it was the best used park place in Concord in the terms of the widely dispersed group of people, from very old to very young, using it on a constant basis. And so as the brochure, which the police chief, the police captain showed, I have it in my hand here. It was developed a long time ago. And the plan, as it says here, was to walk your bikes through Junction Park. And that was the understanding from the very beginning, and it worked pretty well, actually. The West Concord Green Thumbs does the gardening there, as you'll hear. But what we noticed, though, is once the rail trail was almost completed, the number of bikes, and there were occasional bikes that came through, and there are some signs, one which I call the giraffe sign, because only a giraffe could read it, but it apparently fits state law for code, for whatever, I have no idea. I guess, whatever. And a couple of signs on the side once you're in the park. But people generally were good about it. But once more bikes came in, as the director of Concord Park Assisted Living pointed out, following on the bikes came skateboards. So now it becomes a kind of a neat place if you were 13 years old with a new skateboard. Now, the park, at any rate, to go on, the immediate reason is that there is a danger now. It is not as safe a place as it was several years ago. And with the bridge that Marcia explained, it's going to make a real difference, because it's not any longer going to be just local Concord families coming through. It's going to be a lot of people from Lowell, Chelmsford, and so on, and then bringing in, of course, people from Sudbury. And that's exactly what we want. And it should be a boon to Concord businesses. So we're delighted about it, and want it to be safe. So I had actually, there was a misunderstanding about the fact that I had given some list of organizations in West Concord which had sent letters to the select board and the town manager expressing their concern and urging immediate action from the Green Thumbs, from the West Concord Cultural District, the Bruce Freeman Advisory Committee, the West Concord Advisory Committee, the Children's Center, and the Concord Park. All of these organizations have said, please, 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 we represent groups. It is a really vital part of the town. And so I hope that we can ask for some action on this. And in two parts, really, action for this year, which will take us through November to make it a safer place. And then also to look at the longer term, which might involve more work. And because I know your time is short, I just sense that we have just a limited amount of time. I have asked, and I wonder if you'd recognize Patricia Kent, who is the president of the West Concord Green Thumbs. And she has, I can assure you, I've already seen a very brief comment. And then I'm going to come back for 1 second.
Well, I guess I would say, sorry, just because Ellen had asked to be recognized.
Oh, fine.
Ellen Quackenbush
Fine.
next, if you don't mind, Patricia. Can I come to you after Ellen? Patricia, do you mind? Just trying to be fair to people who asked to be recognized. It's in somewhat in order.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Ellen, unmute.
I defer to Patricia. I'm sure she'll be more articulate than me. So thank you, Stephen.
All right, Patricia, name and address.
So I'm Patricia Kent, 18 Westville Drive in West Concord, and I'm the current president of the West Concord Green Thumbs. We're a wonderful nonprofit, all volunteer group of about 55 gardeners. We're responsible for the over 40 hanging baskets lining Main Street and Commonwealth Ave in the village, and for 5 public gardens in West Concord. We are in full support of the urgency to act upon the potential dangers that wheels at Junction Park is posing. At least 2 West Concord members, 2 to 3 days a week, and for 1 to 2 hours at a time. So that's up to about 6 to 12 hours a week. We are at Junction Park, tending to the gardens from May through October. We've noticed an increase in the use of the park, which is good. But also with this increase, there's been an increase in bikes and skateboards whizzing through the park. People do not dismount their bikes when traveling through Junction Park along the Bruce Freeman Trail. This safety issue needs to be addressed before an accident happens.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And Ellen, have you yielded the floor? Are you good? Good, okay. Anyone else like to offer comment before we move? Mark?
Yeah, quick. Yeah, Mark Aylis, 62 Prescott Road. So try to be very brief. It's obviously a complex place with a lot of different uses, intersecting, et cetera. So I think that in terms of the really making major improvements, I have a couple things to throw on the table, and I could always write more later. There's the physical structural aspect of the different uses intersecting with the railroad, the street, the bike path, and the pedestrian ways and sidewalks. I think it might be useful, given the importance of this and the complexity, for at some point the planning division, possibly with other committees, to have a public hearing just to educate the public about all the constraints placed by the MBTA, the roadways, the et cetera, so that people can potentially think of ways of, contribute ways of physically contributing to safety. Separate comment is that there's also, besides the physical, there's a social, psychological, educational part. And I have a number of thoughts, but I'll just, to keep it brief, mention two things. One is, in terms of modifying behavior, if we can suggest positive messages, not thou shalt not do this, but show your support for safe biking by acting this way, doing this way, et cetera. Be a model of safe cycling for our children, or safe use of something, put a positive spin. Sometimes that will have additional impact. And one last thing is, in terms of people using the trail and people using trail maps, and I know some of them are under our control and some not, maybe, if you can give people who learn about the trail and want to use it, the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, the expectation that there is a dismount zone somewhere, something, color coded, clearly marked. You're going to come along this path, it's going to have one type of characteristic, but when you come to this area, it's a dismount zone. That might be helpful, because then people will expect it and not have to be paying attention to a sign at the last minute. Thank you.
Dory, I know you said you wanted to come back. Is it very quick?
Yeah, I'll skip it. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Phil, our bicycle subcommittee chair and committee member, Phil Posner.
Phil Posner, 223 Losbrook Road. I have spoken with Dory about this issue, and actually she and I spoke this morning, and I provided her with a number of photographs that I'd taken. I wanted to say that I generally agree with Mark that it's important for the public to have an opportunity to weigh in and talk about this this particular spot. But I also think that it's important for the committee and then the select board to recognize that what we do here is not D-Day. We do not have to have a major public works project in order to begin to look at how to fix this issue. And my hope is that this committee can talk about this and make recommendations about taking immediate action that's temporary in order to address how this particular space works, see if it works, make an experiment, and then proceed to the next step. So I agree with Dory that we need immediate action. And my hope is that the committee can unburden itself from the feeling that everything has to be subject to a very long process that's guided by a civil engineer and 3 months of meetings and committees and talking. And in the meantime, someone gets hurt. It doesn't have to be that way. And my hope is that amongst us all, we are able to come up with a way to address this in the very short term, and then think about the longer term way to deal with it.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, and I don't know, I'm going to open up to, if there's no other public comment, I would just open up to the committee. And if we're maybe ask the public to again mute themselves and just turn off their video so I can keep tabs on committee members to make sure I'm recognizing everybody. So I guess I'll open up to the committee for comments about, ideas of things that we think we can do in the short term. I think, to Phil's comment on the next agenda item, we spent a lot of time talking about temporary measures and there are challenges sometimes associated with those, and it's not a burden, it's our responsibility, and we are always going to evaluate the safety of temporary measures, but there are times where temporary measures can work just fine and not pose an additional problem, and we should certainly try and find those and implement those. So I don't know if committee members had any thoughts on short-term. Marcia?
Well, I just know that the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee has heard many of these comments during one of their meetings. And what they're proposing to do is to participate in a count in early May to understand the use of the trail so that they can be prepared as we open up the bridge over Route 2. I think the signage can definitely be improved, and I really like the idea of a dismount zone. 2 locations before we even get to the park would be at where the kiosk, the upright kiosk, is located near the bicycle repair station on the south side of Main Street. We could make that zone a dismount zone. So when they're crossing Route 62 to enter the park, they're already dismounted and walking their bikes. The same would happen as people coming from the north might approach the commuter parking lot. There's an area before they cross the driveway to cross the railroad tracks that has a bench and some historic marker. That might be another good designated dismount zone where we could even paint the pavement and add signage to say this is an area of dismount. And then people would be safely crossing over the railroad tracks because they're supposed to be dismounted when they do.
Oh, yeah.
And then along the narrow 8-foot wide path that runs across the easement over the Woods Hill table, that is also supposed to be a walking zone. So I appreciate the comment made about creating those dismount zones and that we should focus on those in addition to removing the giraffe sign from the park. And perhaps adding some additional, maybe there's 1 or 2 additional signs that we might think about in the park, but just to let people know that, and have them off their bikes before they even get there. I think there is also a need to say that this is a congested area, this is a pedestrian area, and you are expected to be walking your bike. So it's my, additionally, there is, before we undertake anything of a major engineering perspective, Ann Sussman is a member of the West Concord Junction Cultural District Committee, and her theme has always been evidence-based design. So when making any proposed changes to Junction Park or anything of a major engineering approach, I think we need to understand how it is being used and who is using it and what the flow is, because that area is commuter oriented in the morning and the late afternoon. It's kid oriented during the day. It's older people oriented, and it's visitors to West Concord as well as workers in West Concord. So we really need to understand how the park is being used and by whom before we undertake any major engineering redesign. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Those good suggestions. I think and put Aaron on the spot now. I think the other thing is as we contemplate signage, there are different types of signs now that, especially, LED, I don't know how people would feel about an LED sign in the park, but I do know it's from being over there and looking at it, it really, when you're approaching it, there's a lot to look at. And so having something that stands out a little bit to notify cyclists, runners, skateboarders that this is a dismount zone and that the conditions are about to change for them. Maybe we need something that's a little more noticeable than normal, because like I said, as you're approaching, it's the commuter rail station, it's the park, it's everything. So I think that's one of the things that I think I would encourage people on the team here to take a look at. Any other comments from committee members? Kate?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something that we had done at a community that I used to work at. And I'm just trying to share my screen here. So this is one that we had on a river trail. And it was helpful. So we did this prior to coming. It's obviously older because I just sent a text message to my friend that still works there and says, can you send me that picture? So they've actually redone it, and they've done it in a high vis paint now, so that when people are riding at night, it kind of comes up too. They have this on 3 different locations. And then stop share, sorry, I'm gonna bring you to the other signage that I think is helpful and more positive, as Mr. Galis had alluded to. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it here. Well, I don't know, it's not coming up, but it basically is a sign that essentially says, you know, get out and walk. And they place that at multiple places before the trail crosses over. And it doesn't just have bikes, it has scooters and a couple of other things, so that people that are riding bikes didn't feel like they were being singled out. That came from a kind of a feedback that we had gotten from the community. Again, this was years ago. And then the last thing is, let me just bring here, this is a trail map. We actually use, this is from someplace out in like Washington State or something, but essentially we used a map similar to this and basically had a couple of flagged areas where it says dismount here or dismount required and whatever. And we added those to the maps, made it a little bit easier for people to know what was coming. So I think some combination of those 3. And if I can find the sign, I'll raise my hand again. Sorry.
Well, I think we just maybe send it over to the committee, and we can start kind of putting together inventory. John?
Yeah, I don't know if thought has been, you know, the policing aspect of that area, or fines associated with it in that area, if there's warnings that are be given. I mean, something on that end.
Yeah, I think we, you know, I know they do patrol the area. I'll just defer to Kevin on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we were there last year. We do a lot of education, not really necessarily enforcement. We want to have, you know, we want to educate people of what the rules are and what the safest way to cross that area is. And we do that. I think, you know, we're talking about different communities coming through Concord, and we want to be a welcoming department. We don't want to be the enforcers and the bullies of the group. We want to work with everybody and kind of teach them the correct way of doing things. I think the best way to doing that is, you know, we can be out there a lot of the time, but we can't be out there, you know, 12 to 15 hours a day. It'd be nice if we could find some partners within the community to kind of assist us in that measure. We can work collaboratively together and kind of just spread the word as much as possible. So we're not there, we can do it with them, or if we're not available, maybe other partners can come in and kind of spread the word as well to get it out as much as we can, especially in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it is a component of this. You know, I think when we talk about solutions, I guess some of the view on a complicated problem like this is rarely one kind of silver bullet solution, and we need to try multiple techniques that may evolve over time, including the observational things that we need to do that Marcia pointed out, because maybe there are physical changes that are needed. But before we go down that, I agree with you, Phil, on principle. Before we start re-engineering everything, let's see if there's some you know, encouragements and you know, we attempt to do some behavioral modification stuff. So anything else on Junction Park? Yes, go ahead, Phil.
I just have a quick question. Is there any reason we can't just put up a sign that says no skateboarding?
Yeah, we have some signage out there, Meryl. I think the point of this discussion is, I think it's been the inadequacy of the signage has been made clear. And I think in the coming weeks, we need to just settle on how we're going to sign it and notify people. And that's what kind of Kate was displaying some examples of that. So I think we just relatively quickly, and I may talk to some town staff, you know, offline about how we need to just make some choices, maybe to present at a meeting here, or just go forward with improving some signage that we know is going to work. So that's certainly an action step that we know we can take.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Okay, can I share the screen for a second?
Sure.
Is that- Okay. All right, so hold on. I think this will work. Does everybody see the traffic cones?
Mhm.
So I am not saying, yes, we have to have traffic cones, but I am singing an ode to the beauty of the traffic cone because it is first of all, we own them. Second of all, they can be delivered to the site immediately. And they're a great way of experimenting with manipulation of the physical space. As I've ridden around the metropolitan area in the last year because of the pandemic, I've ridden around a lot. I've noticed there's been a lot of experimentation using devices like traffic cones to encourage behavior. And when you have a physical object in the middle of the space like this, it really forces people to get off their bikes because it's too narrow to ride. So the idea of something like this is, and the beauty of something like this is what I was suggesting before, it can be implemented at basically no cost. It can be implemented within a very short period of time. And then you can observe in real time how it's working. So if it turns out that it's a total disaster and a crock and somebody gets hurt because they hit the traffic cone, okay, so you take the traffic cone out. But if it turns out that, as I might think, that it's effectively forcing people off of their bikes and forcing them to to walk, then it's a good experiment, and then you can start thinking about maybe something that's aesthetically more what you'd like to see. And I want to say to the folks at the Green Thumbs that you can't see this in this photograph, but Dory has the picture. This is actually the traffic cone that sits next to your little Green Thumb sign in the green area to the left of the photograph. So this cone is actually already there. And hopefully this is the kind of thing I'm hoping we can think about doing because it works. And enough said. And one other thing, I'm just going to bow out for a minute and then pick up again on the phone because I need to take a car trip, but I'll be able to participate on the telephone link momentarily.
We'll see you in a few then. Thanks, Phil. Okay. Anyways, no. Anything else on the Junction Park discussion? Okay, so moving forward, we have a complete streets update. I know Steve Dukran, if you want to take us through some of that.
Yeah,
he's going to kind of update some of our complete streets projects. Sudbury Road is a complete streets project as well, but we're doing it as a separate agenda.
okay. I'm going to share the screen because I have a PowerPoint with some slides. Okay, thank you, Stephen. So as you said, because Sudbury Road is part of Complete Streets grant, I'm going to do it all in one presentation, even though you have it as 2 agenda items. So I'll start by talking about the overall grant. Early last year, we received a Complete Streets grant for almost $400,000. We signed a contract with the Mass DOT in February, and we have a completion date of September 2022. That's next year, 2022, September. We were given an extension because of the delays due to COVID. So only $400,000. It's not the multi-million-dollar grant to do large projects that we'd love to see. But this is for 3 projects. The Hubbard Street improvements, to do some complete street improvements between Walden Street and Thoreau Street. The part of the grant is about $270,000. Then for Commonwealth Ave between Church Street and Losbrook Road, we are going to be spending about $110,000 from that grant. And for the Sudbury Road crosswalk at the intersection of Garfield Road, Oxbow Road and 7 Star Lane, we got about $20,000. So I'll start with Howard Street. The improvements along Howard Street would be putting in new sidewalks. Down in the Walden Street end, we are going to be putting some bump outs to improve the crosswalks because we have parking on that street and you don't want people to be stepping out between the parked cars and not being in a safe spot. So down at this end here, you can see the bump out between the two parked cars. And then at the very end on Walden Street. The other bump out we're proposing here is to protect that large tree. You cannot put curbing up against the tree root. It's not going to be good for the tree. And that's why we need to put that bump out as we have shown. The reason why this is colored up, we are presenting this to the Historic District Commission on the 18th of March. This area lies in the Historic District. This line here, if you can see my cursor, is what separates the district from the rest of the street. Along the street, we'll be doing new curbing and we will be restriping the street. We propose striping between Stowe Street and Walden Street with 10-foot lanes. Beyond Stowe Street, even though the plan below shows that we are doing that as you go towards Thorough, we are not sure about whether the striping will be received well by the neighbors. We've already heard that if you stripe the street with center lines and lane lines and so on, the street will appear to be too much of an urban street. And we'll decide that after we have a neighborhood meeting with them. The street will have a lot of work involving drainage improvements because there are some flooding issues we are trying to address. The gas company wants to go in there and replace their main. So a lot of work on that street, and we'll follow by a full reconstruction of the street. And I'll show in the next slide the schedule that we have come up with. So we have a meeting planned with the neighborhood residents. Hopefully in 2 weeks or so. We already met with a representative and he is helping us arrange that meeting. I mentioned on the 18th, we are going to the Historic District. The advertising of this project will be in the spring. We're shooting for the spring advertising and construction starting in the summer. The first phase would be the gas replacement and the drainage work. And hopefully we can get all of that done this year and maybe start some of the road work. If not, we'll have to get it all done between the spring and summer of next year so we can complete between that deadline of September 30, 2022. Here are a list of all the coordination we have to do with utilities, water, sewer, the light plant. They have all the stuff underground there and they have to do some adjustments. National Grid, Verizon, and Comcast. In terms of cost, the drainage alone, we estimate about $120,000. Sidewalks, $450,000, and the road itself, $250,000. As mentioned before, we have $270,000 from the Complete Streets grant, and we will be looking for another $550,000 from the roads and drainage funds. The project right now is estimated at $820,000 in total. The next project on the grant is the Commonwealth Avenue improvements between Church here near the railroad tracks and Losbrook Road. Similar kind of work expected, rebuilding the sidewalks. The sidewalks are not sloping properly. They don't meet ADA requirements. It could be as much as 7% is what we have measured. We want to improve the crosswalks. There are a couple of crosswalks out there. They're not safely designed. Oh, they could be safer. So we want to improve those crosswalks. And we want to also make accommodations for bicycle by doing the appropriate signage and striping. And the reason why I have the other plan at the bottom there is one that was drawn by the Brookside Development. Part of their planning board conditions from a couple of years back was to improve the crosswalks with bump outs at Harold Street and the other entrance. They didn't go through with this installation because the designs weren't working for the turning of trucks into Harold Street. And so as a result, they have contributed a sum of money towards this project, the Complete Streets project, and we can use their money for design as well as to make up on the construction. And here I have listed what schedule is going to be. We have a consultant, the same one that had worked on the Brookside development. They'll be designing the project for us. We had a meeting with them two days ago to kick it off. They expect to give us a conceptual design by the middle of April, and that will be followed by a neighborhood meeting. And our hope is to advertise this project in the summer this year to start construction this fall. We expect that construction will go over a 2 construction season period because of dealing with all the merchants and the access issues and the number of pedestrians, the fact that the rail station is right down there. So construction will go over into the next year, but shooting to complete all the construction by deadline of September next year. Coordination with a number of utilities listed there. That's always essential in any project. In terms of the cost estimate, we have estimated the drainage, $31,000, curbing sidewalk, $101,000, and the road work itself, $64,000, making a total of $196,000. From the grant, we're getting $110,000. So, and then the Brookside contribution, $86,000. So that should be enough to get us through this project. If we do run over, we'll go where we always do, to the roads program. Something that we cannot continue to sustain because when we do tap into the roads program, it's going to hold that program, set that program back. The Sudbury Road Crosswalk, the third project on the Complete Streets grant list. You have seen this plan before. So I've been going through the detail, but just to show you what we're talking about, we are going to be bumping out this corner here to bring the pedestrian closer to the edge of the street and have a better sight distance of the vehicle approaching. And in order to improve the sight distance, we also have to widen the street on this side of the road. And the project includes putting in 2 flashing beacons. The project is yet to final design. We are preparing the bid book as we speak. We spent a number of weeks working on figuring out the property lines as we got into final design. There weren't good information on property lines. So the engineer had to go through a number of plans, historical plans to determine the exact property lines and then adjust the design so we are working within the public right of way. And so we're close to finishing up those plans and putting out the bid. And the other effort that he had to make was to figure out how to power up these flashing beacons, the solar powered ones. We don't expect them to work well here because they amount to tree cover. So he's been working with CMLP to come up with a plan to run conduit and to meter these beacons. Here is the schedule, advertising in the spring, so in a few weeks from now. Construction starting late spring or early summer, and then completing by late summer or early fall. Coordination, like I said before, with the other utilities that are out there. Cost, we have some drainage work to do, $10,000. Electrical work, $9,000. The curbing sidewalk, $14,500. The road repair because of the widening, together with signage and pavement markings, $29,000. The rapid flashing beacons, $17,500, giving a total of about $8,000, 20 of which will come from the Complete Streets grant, and the rest will come from the roads funds. I'm just going to show you the number of plans we had to examine in order to figure out the right of way. You can look at all of those historical plans, and here you go. So a lot of work for such a small project. All right, so any questions on these? I can stop sharing, right?
Yeah, let's stop sharing. Yeah. So any questions on those? I know the, Steve and Aaron have to go here in a minute. So if you have questions, just turn your video for public comment, or well, any committee questions first, and then I'll ask the public if they have any questions. No questions. Okay, anybody from the public have questions?
Steve, I do, but I can't get my video to go. This is Steve Ledoux, 89 Heatsbridge Road.
Okay.
I guess I wanted to ask Mr. Dukran. Okay, I can start my video now. Thank you. I wanted to ask Mr. Dukran if he's comfortable with the $80,000 for the project. Does he think that's a conservative number, or are we pretty solid with that?
So we typically use recent project bids as for estimating. We do compare with a MassDOT listing of bid prices as well. So that's the estimate we have now, but I think it's a good estimate. And it's when the contractor gives you a bid, that's when you really have to, is it a good bid or not? We haven't seen any significant increases over the last few months. We have, so we think we have a good estimate, unless there are surprises out there.
Okay. Okay, because I know you said an early meeting in October, you might have had some concern about the ability to fund this. So that is why I was asking the question. And then, Mr. Manager, I just have one request of the committee, if that's allowable. I've noticed, because I do run through that intersection quite a bit. Over the last week, I've seen, and it might be helpful if this committee or staff could advise town departments that 7 Star Lane really is kind of one way. I mean, I've seen some CLP vehicles going the wrong way, so to speak, on 7 Star, crossing over to Garfield at the same time of morning the kids are going to school. So it would be nice to advise them about the status of 7 Star Lane.
Sure. Sure, Kevin, do you want to send out a notice to department heads about that?
Yep, absolutely, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been out there the last few weeks, since October, we've been out there on a regular basis as well. We made a lot of stops and enforced that area.
Yeah, I've seen you.
Yep, we'll notify the department heads, no problem at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because it could be a real surprise to some kids or whatever coming up, through that stretch.
Any other comments? Josh, do you have a comment?
Sure. This is Josh, 39 East Circle. Thanks very much for the update. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing it bid.
Great. Thanks. So the last thing is the TAC Bicycle Subcommittee reports. Phil, I know you said you're going to be here by phone. We do have only a couple minutes left before we lose a good chunk of our committee. Is this something that we can maybe defer? I don't know, Phil, are you on the meeting? Or I guess Kevin and John, Arena, I don't know if there's something quick you want to report on behalf of the subcommittee, or just maybe we can push it off to the next session.
I can sum it up in 60 seconds or so. We just had the Safe Routes to School presentation by Rachel O'Donnell from Mass DOT. She gave us some ideas of what we can do going forward with the crosswalks, ride to schools and stuff like that. And the majority of it was spent on the reformatory trail, and a lot of it was public opinion. There's a lot of different opinions of what to do with it and how to do it. So a lot of discussion on that. That's essentially, that was the meeting.
Yeah, the reformatory branch trail is something we've got some correspondence on. I know it's an issue that it's going to be kind of something we're going to have to look at in the near future. I know there's some evolution to that that's going to have to happen as well. So I don't know that we'll have, we talk about the temporary or simple solutions. I don't know that that's going to one that is going to be an issue that's going to have some of those, but it is just as a heads up to the committee, we are going to be talking about that anyway sometime soon. All right, so then I would just turn it over to public comment. Tanya?
Hi there, Tanya Gale, 62 Prescott Road. Yeah, about the discussion from the biking subcommittee and other thoughts I have had since then. I've already pointed out some objectionable discussions between people from Concord and Bedford that took place in November 4th, and I won't harp on that. What I'm realizing is that one reason some interests in the state, not in town, but really in the state, want to discuss doing something with the reformatory branch trail is because there are bicycling interests in the state who want to connect towns, and that's really fair enough. I think that the way they should be approaching this is not by targeting this or that trail in any particular community. I think they should be approaching this by approaching communities and saying, we would like to connect X town to Y town. What can you offer us? It's a mistake to just assume that any particular trail that they pick for whatever reason is fair game on this. And it's definitely inappropriate to put some misrepresentation of facts in letters to the select board, etc. So I just wanted to offer that perspective, that it would be better to approach this from the main goal, which is some people want to connect towns for bicycling purposes. And that's fair. It's just that which trail, what, should be its own discussion. Thanks.
All right, no problem. Anybody else? Any other public comments? Seeing none, I just have one question before we adjourn. John, was it your birthday?
Yeah.
Is it today?
No, it was February 23rd.
A lot of life left in those balloons. Congratulations. All right. If there's no other public comments, no other committee business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Marcia made the motion, Wally seconded. Roll call vote, Marcia?
Aye.
Wally?
Aye.
Merrill? We'll take it as a yes. Kevin?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Phil, if you're here, he's not. All right, thanks, everybody. Good session.
Thank you.